Okay, can you hear me in Zoom land?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, so I'm going to get started. I gave you a curve on your exam of, I think it was 4 points. And then I also gave you an extra credit assignment that's worth more than I usually give. Usually I only give 5 points for extra credit, but I upped it to 10 points. And I posted that on the modules page, Canvas modules page for the class, and you can complete that. You have from now until a week from Sunday night to complete that. It's not that complicated. It should only be no more than half of a page. Just follow the formatting. I also just follow the formatting that I gave you in the instructions, and it's some basic questions, and you can upload your document via the link that's provided. So if you have a problem with that, let me know. Just send me an email and let me know. But if you do that well, and there's no reason why you shouldn't, if you do it well, um, you'll get 10 points extra credit added to the first exam grade. So that should remedy any problems with any of the questions that were on there. There were some questions on there that were problematic, and so that's why I upped the numbers for the extra credit. So on that extra credit assignment, let me say this: go to the book by Carter entitled "Questions: A Primer in Philosophy" that's provided for you on the course modules page, and you'll find the answer in the answers to that question in the first chapter. If I were you, I would just search for philosophy and science, or philosophy and philosophy and science, philosophy and religion. Anyhow, you should be able to find the answer in the first questions. Don't make your answers any more than one half page. One half page is sufficient to answer the questions that are on there in a coherent fashion. So that's there for you. Um, Let me see. So extra credit is there. I added a curve to your grade. The grades were not that bad, to be quite frank. The high grade in that class was 96. In your class was 96. The average grade, I think, was 75, 74. The low grade, I think, was maybe in the 40s, 44, something like that, 43, 42, maybe. Anyhow, so the grades were not that bad, but there were a few questions that were unfair, and that's why I upped the points for the extra credit. All right. Do you have questions for me before I begin talking about Descartes? All right. I want to talk about Rene Descartes today. Last class, we talked about Mr. Plato. We talked about his theory of knowledge. We talked about his theory of knowledge, known in which he talks about we know if we have three criteria, we can claim to know something if we have three criteria met, and that is that we have uh, is justified, it is true, and is believed. Those are the three requirements. Justified, true, belief. It's called JTB theory. I went through some hypotheticals with you regarding. I know I believe in God. I know I mean I know there is a God. I know there is not a God. We went through some other hypotheticals in class, and you'll have some hypotheticals like that on the next exam. So uh, uh, make sure you have those kinds of things in your notes, and you can go through those. Now then, we're talking about another rationalist. Another rationalist is Descartes. He's a little more complicated, but we're going to simplify him today. He's a bit more complicated, but we're going to simplify him. He's tedious reading. I'm not having you read any of his primary works. I'm just going to give you an overview of what Descartes tried to do as a rationalist on the theory of knowledge. So I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint, and I will post this PowerPoint to the website, Canvas page, I should say, modules page. Let me share my screen. All right, there's that. Let me do this. And I will post this for you as well. All right, so we talked about this material and what characterizes rationalism, what Plato believed, justified true belief. All right, so now we're going to talk about Descartes, the rationalist. All right, so notice on this slide, Descartes advanced what was called a theory of methodic doubt. Uh, that's the first line on the PowerPoint slide, a theory of methodic doubt. And that means exactly what it says. Descartes engages in a process of doubt when he's striving to find out how we know something. Now, as a rationalist, he doesn't trust experience. He says experience can be deceptive, it can lead us astray. So he endeavors to come up with one thing that a person can believe that is indisputable, that is unquestionable, that you cannot doubt. The philosophical word there is that is indubitable, Indubitable, indubitable. He was looking for what is called an indubitable or an unquestionable, undoubtable truth. All right. So notice the second bullet point on that slide. Descartes proposes that before we can know anything about the external world, we must know how we know. Now, before we can know what that is saying is Descartes was of the belief that before you and I can know what the external world around us is like, we have to know how we know. Because if we do not know how we know, then we cannot really have an understanding that is reliable of what the external world is like. For example, if we trust our senses, Descartes says our senses may be deceiving us. So he wants to get down to one logical, indubitable, unquestionable reality that provides a foundation for knowledge. All right. So the next bullet point says Descartes argued that we must limit what we know to that which is indubitable. There's that word, or that which is 100% certain. He explains this in his book entitled Meditations on First Philosophy. In that book, he has 6 meditations, and he really explores his theory of epistemology. It is tedious reading. It's not something that you would want to read for fun. And so I'm just going to break it down for you and kind of explain it to you what Descartes' method of doubt consisted of. Next slide. There are 3 theses or 3 themes in Mr. Descartes' meditations. First of all, Mr. Descartes says that we should claim to know only that for which we have justification. Now, that sounds a bit like Plato. Plato says we have to have justified true belief. It has to be our belief, our claim to knowledge has to be based upon a reliable justification. And Descartes agrees with Plato. Descartes says that we should claim to know only that for which we have a justification. Number 2, his second thesis is we cannot appeal to anything outside of our ideas for justification. Now, he's talking about sensory experience there in that second thesis. He's saying we cannot appeal to anything outside of our ideas or outside of our brains or outside of our logic for justification. We can't appeal to our senses as a basis for justifying what we claim to know because our senses are not reliable. They might be deceiving us. The world might not be as we're experiencing it because our senses deceive us on other occasions. So he says we have to keep our justifications within the realm of cognition, within the realm of thinking, within the realm of your brain, within the realm of innateness. All right. So is there anything logically that is unquestionable is what Descartes is asking. And then number 3, the third thesis is we judge our ideas using a method that guarantees that our ideas are correct. And he says that method is his method of doubt. So let me explain to you what Descartes means by his method of doubt. Descartes by his method of doubt, and you will see this on the exam, Descartes, by his method of doubt, proposes that or engages in, let me say, he engages in a process whereby anything that he can doubt or anything that he can question that he claims knowledge of, he throws that out and says it's not reliable knowledge. For example, let's posit the idea that I know there is a God. I know there is a God. Descartes would say, can that be doubted? Yes, indeed, it can be doubted. So I can think that there is no God. That can be questioned whether there is a God. I can say maybe there is no God. It can be doubted. So therefore, Descartes says we have to throw that belief out. I look at the world outside me in my back lawn, and I see that the trees are green. Can that be doubted? Yes, they can be doubted. My senses might be deceiving me. They might not really be green. And so Descartes says, I have to throw that out. He engages in a process whereby he investigates everything that he claims to know. And if it can be doubted, that which he claims to know, then he throws it out and says that is unreliable knowledge. He's looking for that one thing that he can posit in his mind that cannot be doubted, that cannot be questioned, that is 100% certain, indubitable, undoubtable, all right? So that's really the way that Descartes' method works. He's not crazy. This is a process for him. He's just asking himself, is there one thing that I claim to know that cannot be doubted? All right, so we're looking for that one thing. First meditation, he says this in his book, The Meditations. In the first meditation, he says, our ordinary experience of the world cannot provide a guaranteed foundation on which all other knowledge can be based. Experience is not a reliable basis because, as I have repeatedly said, Descartes, like the other rationalists, says that we cannot trust our senses because they might be deceiving us. Number two, he says we must adopt a method that will avoid error by tracing what we know back to a firm foundation that is indubitable, that is indisputable. He's looking for one thing that cannot be questioned in his mind. That's why, bullet point number three, Descartes' epistemology is known as foundationalism. That's why his theory is known as foundationalism. Descartes is looking for that one truth that he adheres to in his mind that cannot be doubted, that is indubitable, which will serve as the foundation, a solid foundation, for him to reconstruct all of his theory of knowledge. And you'll see how that works in one moment. Descartes' first meditation, he says, first, we have to doubt everything we know. Secondly, we have to engage in hypothetical doubt. I posit something I claim to know, and then I ask, can it be questioned? Third, we doubt all sensory experience. Boy, that's a constant theme with the rationalist. Senses cannot be trusted. A straight limb stuck in the water looks bent. Your senses are deceiving you. You see a mirage on the highway ahead of you. You get there, there's no water. Your senses have deceived you. Descartes infers from that, if in those instances your senses are deceiving you, how do you know that your senses are not deceiving you right now? When you dream, your dream seems very real. You think what's happening is real, only to awake and find out it was only a dream. But in that moment of the dream, it seemed real to you. Descartes says, how do you know that this is not a dream? So he just doesn't trust the senses. He doesn't trust the dream state. Fourth, he says, we doubt our supposition that we can distinguish between our being awake and dreaming. He says, don't assume that you can distinguish between those moments when you are dreaming and those moments when you are actually awake, because when you're dreaming, the dream seems very real. It seems real, but then you awake only to find out that it was not. So Descartes says, what if you're dreaming now? What if you're dreaming all of this? This might not actually be happening. So he says, don't give yourself more credit for being able to distinguish between dreams and reality. Now, Descartes' not losing his mind. This is a process for him. This is a methodic process of doubt. And fifth, he says, we doubt our reasoning abilities. We doubt our reasoning abilities until we find some rational thought that is indubitable or undoubtable. Even our reason can deceive us up to a point, he says. So he's looking for that one thing reasonably that cannot be doubted. All right, doubting sensory experience. We've talked about this repeatedly. He says we doubt our sensory experience. You put a straight limb in the water, it looks bent. The moon on the horizon looks very large in its full state. In the midnight sky, it looks very small. Descartes says your senses deceive you. You think when you put your hand in hot water, initially it feels cold and then it burns you. Your senses have deceived you. So senses can be deceptive. And he says, how do we not know that our senses are deceiving us right now? How do I know that I'm sitting at this desk? My senses might be deceiving me. How do I know that the sun is up outside? My senses might be deceiving me. How do I know that this room is painted gray, a dark color in my office? He says my senses might be deceiving me. In other words, the external world around me and the external world around you right now, where you sit, Descartes says, your senses might be deceiving you. It may not be exactly as you are experiencing it. So you can't trust the senses. Next, he asked the question, consider the fact that we can't distinguish between dream and reality, dreaming, a dream state, and reality. He says in those moments when we are asleep and we start dreaming, those dreams seem very real. We think we're actually walking down a path. We think we're actually talking to someone. We think we're actually experiencing something in our dream. It seems real, but then we wake up only to find that it was only a dream. In the moment of the dream, we don't realize that it's a dream. So Descartes infers and says, in this moment right now, you might be dreaming and you simply do not know that you're dreaming. And so he says, don't give yourself more credit for being able to distinguish between a dream and actuality, because when you're dreaming, you thought the dream was real. So how do you not know that that's happening right now? So he says you may be dreaming that you're talking to someone else. I might be dreaming that I'm delivering this lecture. After all, in my dreams, things seem very real. So how do I know that same phenomenon is not happening in this moment? All right. The next point, he says we should question our reasoning abilities. We question our reasoning abilities. All right. Descartes is very interesting. Descartes says, really, we cannot be certain that 2 + 3 equals 5 or 2 + 2 equals 4. He says we can doubt that. That's questionable. Those are merely symbols. So we can doubt that. Can't be certain that triangles always have 3 sides, he says. Now, that stands in contradistinction to what we talked about with regard to Plato, but Descartes says he goes a little further and says we can't doubt that we can't be certain that 2 + 3 equals 5, that triangles have 3 sides, that the whole is always greater than its part. You can't be sure that if A equals B and B equals C, then A must also equal C. You can't be sure of that. He says, why? Because he posits in his meditation the idea of what he calls an evil genie, an evil genius. He says, so there might be some evil genius or evil genie or evil creature that is deceiving you into thinking those things are true. He even posits the idea that God might be deceiving you. into thinking those things are true. So those things are not indubitable. They are highly questionable. Remember, he's looking for the one thing that is indubitable. Is there anything that cannot be doubted? Let me see. The next slide. He asks whether there's anything that we can know or that cannot be doubted. Is there anything that survives his methodic doubt? He says, I can doubt the existence of the external world. I can doubt the existence of my body. I can doubt the existence of my reasoning ability. He says, I can doubt that I am actually experiencing this because I might be dreaming. So I hope you're understanding what Descartes is getting at. He gets down to one thing, and this slide nails it. So pay attention to this slide. He says, there's one thing that I cannot doubt, that I cannot question. And he says that one thing that I cannot question or cannot doubt is this: I am thinking. His Latin phrase at the bottom of the slide is cogito ergo sum. Cogito is the Latin word for I think. Ergo is therefore. Sum is I am. I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore I exist. Descartes says the one thing that I cannot doubt is that I am a thinking thing, because even when I am doubting, I am thinking. Even when I am doubting, I am thinking. So that point, the cogito is what it is called. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. That is the one indubitable, unquestionable truth that knowledge must be built upon. And so that is what is called, and this is going to be on the exam, I promise you. I can see the question in my mind right now. That is called his epistemologic turning point. His epistemologic turning point. It's where he ceases his doubting and starts rebuilding his knowledge. I think of it like this: he doubts, he doubts, he doubts, he doubts, he doubts. He comes down to the one thing that he cannot doubt. I think, therefore I am. And then he begins to reconstruct his theory of knowledge. All right. So this is deconstruction. When he doubts, he hits the foundation, the cogito ergo sum, and then he engages in reconstruction of his theory of knowledge. So deconstruction, a turning point, then reconstruction. He says the one thing that I cannot doubt, once again, is that I'm a thinking thing, because even when I'm doubting, I know that I'm thinking, because doubting requires thinking. So he says, therefore, I think, therefore I am. I know that I think. If I know, and here's the way it works. I'm going to summarize it for you. And you're going to need to know this. Number one, he says, I think, I know that I'm a thinking thing. Then he says, if I'm a thinking thing, I must exist. If I exist, I know that I'm imperfect. If I know that I'm imperfect, then I must know what perfection is. If I know what perfection is, there must be a God who put perfection in my mind. If God put perfection in my mind, then God must be perfect. If God is perfect, then therefore God will not allow me to be deceived, because he's perfect, he's fair. If God will not allow me to be deceived, then there's no evil genie that is deceiving me, or evil creature that is deceiving me. If there's no evil creature that is deceiving me, therefore I can trust my senses. If I can trust my senses, then I can know that the external world is as it appears to be. And so everything is back in place again. That's the system. You need to write down what I just said in your notes and make sure you have that in front of you, because it proceeds from deconstruction, doubt, to the one thing that he says I can know, I'm a thinking thing. And then it begins reconstruction. I think, I exist, I know imperfection. If I know imperfection, I know perfection. If I know perfection, there must be a God who put it there who is perfect. If God is perfect, God will not allow me to be deceived by an evil genie, nor will he deceive me. If I'm not deceived, then therefore I can trust my senses and know that the external world is as it is. And he says it's all based upon one indubitable truth. I think, and I can't doubt that I'm thinking. I think, therefore I am. So that's Descartes' method of of um, of epistemology. It's his method of doubt. All right. Let me see. That's really what I want you to know about Descartes and Plato and rationalism. And so, with that in mind, I'm going to stop right there. And do I have any questions? Do you have any questions? I will post this video before the next exam. And then I will also post these PowerPoint slides before the weekend is over with. And then we will meet face to face. I have an interview regarding an impeachment trial in Austin in the state Senate that's taking place, which required me to be at home today to prepare for the interview and to do the interview later on today at 11:30. So anyhow, that's that. And I am going to adjourn and move on to my next class. You have a great weekend. Be safe, please, my friends. Be safe. Bad things happen over the weekend. Don't put yourself at risk. I want to see you back in class on Monday, and we will meet face to face. Have a great day. Bye-bye.